Greetings, everybody. Today, we're going to be taking a short look at the Eastern Christian tradition of the Magi. So, it's that time of the year, it's the season, and we often see nativity displays or images of the so called wise men, the three kings, as they're called in the Western tradition. But who and what are they? We're going to look at some of these questions coming up and what they mean for the Eastern Christian tradition. So, where does the term magi actually come from? Well, it comes from the Persian term magush, which is how it is in Aramaic. And the magushe in Aramaic refer to people who are Zoroastrian priests. So, these are priests of the Zoroastrian religion. And their name is associated with an English word that we all know, magic. See my microphone appear and disappear? Magic, right? So, why did we take this term magi or magush and connect it with magic? Think of the way in which the Persian wise men are represented in the West, namely by the Greeks. And you see some of this in scripture too, where you have someone named Magus, Simon Magus, who performs sort of an act of sorcery. But they're also known for being wise, for knowing things like astronomy, for being able to read the stars, not just astronomy, but astrology. And so all of this sort of hidden knowledge, like in the proto sciences, you have prior to things like chemistry, you have alchemy, and you have traditional arts in the scientific realm. And at their base level, or their maybe not base level, but their initial level in human history, there's less of a specific method or process to get to the results. And so there's a lot of things like mythology, culture, and religion woven into that. And so it would come across as something that we might today call magic. And so, fair or not, we use this term in English that comes from the Greek use of the term sort of as an insult to this priestly class of Persians. Now, how does this fit with the Magi of the holiday season? Well, we know that Magi or wise men came from the East, and it depends on your translation in English, what you read in the Christian scriptures. But if you read them in Aramaic, you see the word is magushe. It is Magi coming from the East. So that's what our word means. Now, a lot of our information in the West comes from our images that we use in the nativity season. Nativity season, the Christmas season, the Advent season, whatever the preferred term is for whatever the tradition. And the images convey information to us, but maybe not in the same way that they're remembered in different places. So if you look at a Christmas image or a nativity scene, you'll often see three wise men. And we have names for these three wise men these days. Generally, they're regarded as Gaspar, Balthazar, and Melchior in Western Christian tradition. Why three, though? Why three? Well, if you look at the images, you'll notice there are three gifts. Three gifts. And what are they riding typically? Typically, they're riding camels. Why? Well, in the West, the camel is sort of a symbol of travel in the East, the Middle East, basically. But that's not how they're remembered in the Middle East. Now, in the Middle East, there's different traditions, but one of these that we don't really know too much about of the West is actually who these people were, what their names were, and how many there were. So, to better understand the way that the Magi are remembered in Eastern Christianity, namely Christianity from the Middle East, Syriac literature, and this is from the Cave of Treasures, we can find out how many Magi there were and what their names were. So, in one tradition, there are 12 Magi, not three. Three just reflect the number of gifts given. So, when we look at the names of the Magi, we see a number of these that look very different than things we know about in the West. I'll just go ahead and do my best to read them off. They're all Persian, except for one, maybe two, but really they're all Persian names. Zaharvandad, son of Artaban. Now, I said Zaharvandad. Maybe that sounds a little bit more of like a modern Farsi accent. It could have been Zaharwandad at that point. In fact, if you look at older Persian, Middle Persian, and even the way it's spoken in Afghanistan, someone who speaks Dari, the older or the court form of the Persian language, W's are used instead of V's, but old habits die hard. So, first one, Zaharvandad, son of Artaban, Hormizd, son of Sanatruk. Hormizd may be a little bit more familiar. That name, there are saints. Saint Hormizd is a saint in the Christian tradition. It's a popular name, goes back to the deity Ahura Mazda. There's even a pope, Hormizdas, it goes back. Aushtasp, son of Gudafar. Arshak, son of Mehruk. Zarvand, son of Vadvad. Ariho, son of Khosrau. Khosrau is a good name. Name of several Persian kings, but also the birth name of the Iron Sheik. God rest his soul. His name was Khosrau, if I'm not mistaken. Artaxerxes, son of Havilat. Ashtambozan, son of Shishrawan. Mihruk, son of Humam. Akshirash, son of Sahban. Nasardi, son of Baladan. And finally, Merodach, son of Bel, probably Marduk, son of Bel. This is the transliteration here. The last name is actually very Mesopotamian. It's very Babylonian. And so, is it possible that one of the Magi was actually from Babylon or from somewhere in Mesopotamia? Both the names, Merodach and Bel, you may have seen them in the Bible. And so Marduk, of course, is the popular deity he's the chief deity of the city of Babylon. And Baal is just another name for Baal or Baal that you may know from the Old Testament. That word just means Lord, basically, or overlord, something like that. Master, right? The master. So our last question we can ask is, did they ride camels? Well, according to this Syriac icon, they rode horses. Horses are a common means of transportation in the Middle East. It's not just camels, and there's different types of camels, of course. Camels came to the Middle East at a certain point in history, and so horses were there long before. In fact, if you look at the different reliefs, and artwork of the ancient Near East going from Egypt across the Middle East, there's a lot of chariots, and so horses are used as part of the chariotry system. And then cavalry start, probably with the Persians. It probably came out of Central Asia, but there's early attested evidence of horse riding. And you may have seen, different movies or people talk about Arabian horses, right? Whether it's the Assyrian horse that we call Arabian because they're bred in the Middle East, and our way of speaking of it might be that this is the Arab horse or the Arabian horse. So horses are actually a part of the landscape of the Middle East. And so the camel might be a Western interpretation or letting us know this thing is happening in the Middle East. It may not be to history scale, so to speak. And in fact, the way it's remembered in the East is a little bit different. So I hope this information was interesting for you. And remember, Scripture itself only speaks of 3 gifts. And so, that's gold, myrrh, and frankincense. So there's a lot of interesting information that's out there that we now have access to and we can learn about that may inform our way of celebrating the holiday season. So for all those celebrating the nativity season, I hope this was a fun video for you and it provided some insight or, some at least trivia, things, maybe we didn't know about the region. Have a great one and keep coming back for more interesting information about the East.